Good evening. This is a clipped review of the district's budget meeting. This is the meeting where the administration is lobbying the government for more money, more employees, and a tax increase. Now, I want you to pay attention closely. At the beginning, I have a little comments about my public address to the board related to accountability. And then we get into the administration's lobby for more money to the government board. Now, the problem we see is that the government lobby, when they talk about this is the collection for the budget, they only talk about the people that are getting money from the budget, not the people providing the money to the budget. That's number one. And then number two, if you listen carefully, you'll recognize that when they talk about the collection rate being reduced, that's people, for the most part, that aren't going to pay their taxes. Somewhere along the line, if you don't pay your taxes, they take your house. And in our district, if they take the house of a senior that pays taxes and has no burden to the community for the educational benefits that are provided to students within the community, and then they have to move, and then someone moves in with, say, 4 kids, each kid's worth about $250,000 in educational benefits. You're talking about $1 million of ultimate expenditure over the period of time to which we're educating those children. So the goal in a district is to not lose any of your seniors. Let them be home so the kids can be home with their seniors. Let them go to the baseball games. Let them go to the football games. Don't force our seniors to move to Florida because you keep raising the taxes. It's common sense. But let's take a look at this anyway, and I hope you enjoy the clips we pulled. I'll get me out of here. Thank you very much. Here we go. And you'll see a couple times I speed it up just to let you know that it's a bigger video and that the whole video is online. This is just the highlighted clips, 11 minutes.
They never should have gotten the stipend. The board should have reviewed prior to issuing those checks month after month after month after month. They should have looked at them first. And when you get the bank statements like I had to go get, and that man right there twice voted to stop board members from getting bank statements. But once we did, you could see where the payments were going. You could recognize that there was immorality taking place. I think that's why it happened in court. You can also recognize that when we weren't getting payments in on the bank statements, we knew that we weren't billing Thompson properly. And that's $1 million taken from these taxpayers. Again, if you bill properly, you don't need $1 million from us in your budget. You should be able to reduce the budget by at least that $1 million.
Plus all the others. We present also and then maybe you can follow with that.
Just so we can review, we kind of just hash this out. Our budgetary process is essentially a collaboration of everybody involved. And as Mr. Corby just said, we built this budget from $0. We met with our high school team, our middle school team, our elementary center, administration teams, and they requested information early on from their teachers about what they would need to make the next school year successful. Included in those meetings were our grounds, athletics, our technology department, obviously our business office, our industrial arts departments, and our special education department, which all consume a significant amount of data. We also involved key business partners, such as our insurance company, healthcare consultant, and other service providers, such as George's Transportation, our trash haulers, gas companies, internet, and phone. There are some.
The person they didn't contact, well, actually, it sounds like they contacted all the people that are getting the money from the district, not necessarily the people that are paying the money from the district. They should have done a survey. They should have asked, want to make sure that people can pay their taxes, or you're going to lose your house. And that's not ever a good thing. All right, let's get back to the meeting.
We have a pending need to address curriculum in the district with a substantial price tag. For those of you that have been around, our district has not done anything with curriculum in several years. We have a lot of expired curriculum. We have open and pending litigation, as well as adequate staffing needs to meet the needs of our students. Obviously, we don't comply. A certified nursing position, one addition to the business office. I did put a note down there 5 years ago. We had 330 staff members. Today we have 255. That's a 23% reduction in staff in 5 years.
Can you break down that, what staff they were, was it teachers, was it support staff, what was it?
I didn't go that far into it. I assume a lot of them are associated with the elementary consolidation.
I mean, everything,
A lot was support staff, because I remember from a previous presentation, we
We can certainly make that.
I don't see a reduction in expenses that are equally anywhere close to that, so I think over 5 years, we lost 23% of our staff, with our expenses that are going down 23%. And over here, the staff salaries are a big part of that, so. Anyway.
Absolutely. And just so we're clear, adding this many positions to the district that has a price tag of $835,000. You're including their salary, their benefits, and their fees.
Are those secretaries in addition to the one per school?
Yes.
Would be in addition?
Yes, correct.
835?
$835,000.
And Brian, it looks like there was 80 staff member reduction, 80 people for your 2,300 students.
If we move on, I think the next slide is important to show. I used it last year, I updated it for this year. We need to talk about history a little bit. Our tax rate history in the district from 2011 to 2012 was 47.32 mils. To where we are today, 52.77 mils. Obviously, the majority of our revenue is no secret. 53.6% comes from local revenue, which we'll talk about a little bit more in depth. 41% state revenue, and then 5.3% is federal. We move on to the next slide. The local revenue is broken down pretty substantially. Property taxes are the largest portion of your local revenue. Earned income tax is the second largest group, followed by delinquent tax collections as well as tuition from other districts and an IDEA reimbursement from the IU.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Previous slide, we talked about the audit of the budget. Why are the budgets for property taxes not very different between 2021 and 2022 when there was a big increase? It's a $100,000 increase, so we definitely raised taxes.
Yeah, so we did lower, we raised our taxes, however, I lowered the collection rate to account for COVID to, I believe, 92% that year, last year. I didn't produce the prior year's figures, so I can't really say what they used to estimate those figures.
This isn't what we took in, this is what was budgeted.
Yeah, that was what was budgeted. I can't say where they derived that figure from, I didn't produce that number. I can tell you my figure was conservative based on the fact that we were coming out of COVID, we were still in COVID, we weren't sure what was going to happen. I lowered our property tax collection rate, probably, I believe it was by 3% just to cover that.
The tax collection rate, what does that say to you as a taxpayer? And what does it say to you as trying to keep your grandparents and seniors within the community? Thank you.
Less than 3.5%.
Yes.
figured that the NEF mistake was $3 million. That was what exactly is this budget today?
It's not in this one.
Okay, that's going somewhere, because I think it's going up and up. So if we repaid that back at $40 million, and we're headed to $45 million.
So that expenditure, it was uniquely put into our system, we'll say.
NEF contract uniquely put into the district. Here you go. Oh, God, how they do this stuff. Anyway, here is Superintendent Cleaver at the time wire transferring $1.7 million out of the district, right, on these programs. Students enrolled into Grave Point, NEF invoices, all this was part of a right to know request that I provided, right? Who was getting the NEF stipends, who was in the program. And when you look at it, regretfully, they apparently didn't really do the job, which is a difficult situation, except for the taxpayers are the one paying it. The audit recommends that the district tries to recoup some of the money it paid for services it never received from the NEF, as per the arrangement. This is right out of the Auditor General's report. If you get more deep into the Auditor General's report, you're going to see things like this. The District Board of School Directors had the foresight to commit a portion of the fund balance to offset rising pension, which they did a good job, for other post-employee benefits. However, the district exhausted those reserves and paid for the construction of a stadium. This is straight from the Auditor General's report. This is Larry Stern and Wayne Wentz and Steve Holland. When they got this report, they were supposed to do something about this and correct these issues taken by those previous board members. I think Steve and Wayne were on the board back then. Here's the next one. The district prepaid expenditure balances of over $3 million it wired to the National Education Foundation. $3 million of taxpayer funds. It was the district that actually paid the stipends, incentives, and other support services when it entered into the NEF at a cost of 20% of the QAZ bond proceeds. These separate agreements were signed by superintendent and the former business manager. However, we could not find any evidence, this is the Auditor General, that these agreements were presented to the board for approval as required by the Public School Code. Here is where the government board failed to provide the proper oversight. They blindly trusted and rubber stamped the administration in non-compliance of the Pennsylvania School Code. It's required that the board does its job, and it didn't do it. While the superintendent acknowledges that he signed the agreements, he believed, write a check for your money, he believed the agreements were a part of the QZAP program and did not realize that the district had to forward 20% of the bond proceeds to the NEF. We call that fools in your money. According to the data provided by the district, cumulative enrollment of the elementary middle school STEM programs was 6,000 students over a 5-year period. With each student receiving one license each year, the total of in-kind contribution would only be $420,000, significantly less than the $4.2 million that was pledged to the NEF. The official stated that the NAF also provided access to licenses to the community. However, the official could not provide any evidence that the district community ever used any of the licenses. None of the licenses used. They did not receive the in-kind contributions. Did not receive any payments or services for the $1.36 million we gave to the NEF. So this is money we should be able to completely cut right out of the budget because, regretfully, they just wasted it. Here's another one you got to look at. The first QZAB was for a STEM program in the middle and elementary school, and there's approximately 1,300 students enrolled each year in the STEM program. Therefore, even after factoring in licenses for teachers and parents, it's difficult to understand the need for over 12,000 annual licenses when each person only needs one license to access all the courses. So why did Lehighton fail to provide the oversight and spend 12,000 annual licenses for 1,300 students? The board failed to provide oversight. All right, let's get back to this. I just want to make sure everybody was aware of just how chaotic and ridiculous the blind trust and rubber stampers pulled one over on the community. Highly suggest that the new board calls in all of the people involved in this NEF program to an open hearing and review what went on. That's Gloria Bowman. That's Wayne Wentz. That's Steve Holland. Anyone that was on the board during this time. They should be called in and told to apologize, provide oversight, and find out what happened so that any new board member never fails this again. We should never pay $3 million and not get what we paid for. That lack of oversight, scary. All right, back to the clips.
And our financial statement was adjusted by our auditing firm several years ago to reflect the change in our financial statement to lower it because that money was not here. It's not in this budget. If it's in there, I would love somebody to show it to me because it's just not there. If you bought something and paid for it, whether you got it or not, it's not reoccurring in this budget here. I don't know why.
We have 40, and I'm not sure the exact number, but we had 40 million budget that year, and we're at 45 million. Did the expenses go up that much that 3 million got wiped out in increases in expenses? Or we have that $3 million?
It was paid in money. I mean, it was fund transferred via
Wire transfer.
Yeah, wire transfer via bank. It hit our expenditure file when it was corrected by the auditors, but to say it's in a future budget, how do we get from 40 to 45 in that time period? There's a lot of factors involved there. Transportation, like I said, there's also $1 million in here that's going to drop off when we stop the grants because we added things in and we're pushing those grants. And I'm not trying to skate around that issue. I'm just trying to say there's lots of things that contribute to that. I mean, salaries have gone up, benefits have gone up over that time period since NEF had happened. Cost of goods and services have certainly gone up. Everything has gone up since then. But mainly, your drivers of any budget, and I think our solicitor would agree with this, is your salaries and benefits are your main drivers. At 64.5% of your budget, that's your driver. That's going to take the budget to so.
I have a question. In this $45 million budget, is there a fund balance left?
For the same number of students being educated in the same, granted the smaller, debt-free, safe elementary schools. But when you look at those 5-year charts, now that is a difference when you're asking.
Just to clarify, this is me speaking in the meeting, not external to the meeting. We're actually in the meeting, reminding them, same number of students. Why is the budget going up so significantly? And then you got this idea that the government board is allowing for this type of an arrangement where we're paying $76,000 for a salary and $32,000 in health benefits for that salary. That's higher than the average income for a household owner in the Carbon County, just benefits. So that means if a teacher's getting $76,000 in salary, it's costing the district $127,000 in taxpayer money. So that just puts that in perspective. This is straight from the business manager. If you look at their audits, they also talk about some of the problems with the NEF and the lack of oversight. But this is a key feature. I think if you looked at this from a realistic standpoint, as if you're a real business person and wanted to look at something, I bet if you had a conversation, if the board was allowed to negotiate this contract like they're supposed to, they could easily go to the staff members and say, wouldn't you rather have more money up here and a lot less money given to this third party? And most of these staff members might not even use this Cadillac healthcare benefits program that used to be the employer of our old business manager. You know, it's just something. The consortium was never a financial benefit to the district before we switched out of it. And then when we switched back in, it appears that it's probably not the best interest of the district. And to spend $32,000 in benefits for an individual employee when they're only getting paid $76,000 is a little bit ludicrous. All right, back to the meeting. Thank you. Get me out of here.
Somebody to lend money to them. So it's a bond prospectus, legally obligated to be accurate, honest, or fraud comes out, right? So if you look at those numbers in comparison to what your lobbyist administration is giving you now, and you recognize that in those years where no tax increase, that's when we came on board as citizens and said, we better watch what these guys are doing because they had $13 million in a savings account of surplus collection of taxes. So when you hear your lobbyist say, hey, the taxes hasn't changed, there was so much added on when nobody was paying attention in the community that those tax increases where they were taking the limits like they're trying to do today and nobody was paying attention, they amassed a $13 million surplus. And they got like sailors on leave. They bought a $7 million stadium. They gave a couple $1 million to an NEF program they never even did. They didn't even bother collecting money from Palmerton or the other districts we were providing for. And these taxpayers paid the burden. We had 75 more employees than you needed to do the same job. And if you look at our employment records versus the entire state, and I sent these to the board, you'll see that you can compare yourself to other districts of the same size. Not only is our budget through the roof, but here's your soundbite. We are paying more in medical benefits to our staff than the average Carbon County average Carbon County resident has as their income. Look it up on any census.
Well, one of the good things is that it's been keeping us abreast of things as we've been going along here, so some.
Okay, so that's the highlights. If you look at it, there's great opportunity to save this district by right-sizing the employment of the individuals and staff members. Recognize you don't need to add 11 new staff members. You want to go the other direction in the fact that you want to look at it as, who do we need to educate? And how many staff members do we need to accomplish that task? You don't go to the staff providers and say, how many more of your buddies should we hire because we can add them to this budget, since in the past we were saving money. And to cut back on a $32,000 benefit for each and every employee, not that hard to do, especially when staff members are young. They probably don't even access. Somebody should be reviewing how much of that was actually accessed as a benefit. PEASers, huge dollar value. When they put all that money aside for the PEASers, we'd be in a very good financial position, because that money, that $8 million, would have been collecting interest, not paying interest like we are now. We would have been collecting interest on those dollars to help offset some of these PEASers. 35.62% PEASer rate. That's why they put it aside to start with. When Wayne and Steve and those guys decided to harvest, within a year, consumed it. Auditor General confirmed it, corroborated the problem. Your neighbors, your school directors, should be asked these questions as to why did they do that to these kids. Thank you.